Greetings, I'm Squared, and we are going to solve some quadratic equations using the method completing the square. So you'll see over here there is a list of steps that you need to do when you complete the square. Keep in mind that if you're completing the square to change a quadratic equation into vertex form, that it's a little bit different than this. These steps are for when we actually solve an equation, when we're finding the x-intercepts. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that a is 1, and remember a is the number in front of the x squared. And in both of these, that is true. A is 1. These are simpler ones. So then the next thing we want to do is move c to the right side. So I'm going to take this equation, and I'm going to move c to the right side. The next thing I want to do is add half of b squared. So first I find half of b. My b is 2. Half of it is 1. 1 squared is 1. So I'm going to add half of b squared to both sides. And then I'm going to factor the left side. Now the reason we took half of this, squared it, and added it here is so that it would factor beautifully into a trinomial square. So I need it to factor perfectly. That's why I take half of that and square it. And when you do that, you always get the square root of that and the square root of that in these spots with this sign. Now the square root of this, if you did it correctly, will always be half of that as well. So if you want to factor, to multiply this out, x plus 1 times x plus 1, you can, but you will get that. And so that's why it factors so prettily there. And so then we have x plus the quantity x plus 1 squared equals 64. So we factor the left side. The next step is to take the square roots of both sides. So we take the square root. When we take the square root, remember squaring and square roots cancel out, so we're left with x plus 1. Really, really important is to remember that when you take the square root of both sides of an equation, you always get two answers, a plus or a minus. So it's plus or minus 8. So now our goal is to get x alone, so we minus 1 from both sides, so we get x equals, and there's two answers, 8 minus 1, or x equals negative 8 minus 1, because one time we use a positive and one time we use the negative. So we get 7 or negative 9. And those are our solutions, our zeros, our x-intercepts, whichever one they're happening to ask for at the moment. Those words are all interchangeable. Okay, let's move on to this one. A is 1, so I move c to the other side. I take half of b, which is negative 3, and square it, which is 9, and add it to both sides. I then factor the left side, which will always factor beautifully into this, the square root of this, and the square root of that with that sign, or half of 6 is 3 as well. And on this side I get a negative 2. I then square root both sides. So x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 2. Now remember the plus and minus, but also we are taking the square root of a negative number, which means we have to simplify that. So we get x minus 3 equals plus or minus I radical 2. Then we can add 3 to both sides, and so our answers are 3 plus or minus I radical 2. And most teachers would let you leave it like this. If you needed to split it up, you can split it up into this and this, but you cannot simplify that. That is the actual answer. So good luck completing the square. I'm Squared, signing out.